Great. Hello, everyone. We're here today with Curtis. There he is. And it looks like there's quite a few people in the live chat, so welcome those people. If you're watching in the future, then we have a live chat whenever we do this every week, and people tend to join in with that. Anyone in the live chat, please feel free to ask questions. And obviously, in the future, you can leave comments on the video, and hopefully we'll go back and look at them. I'm sure Curtis will be able to answer any questions you've got if you want.
Yeah, I'd rather not.
Oh, I've got a quick question for you, Curtis. Where are you? Because I noticed you had a video up about the Brighton Guitar Show and said it was local.
Yes, I'm near Gatwick Airport, so quite close to anyone else not in the UK. It's an airport. It's great. Don't worry about it. But yeah, not too far from Brighton.
Yeah, because I'm in Brighton. So next time you have the show, I'll make sure I catch you there.
Oh, next time I'm down on the parade, I'll come and wave at you.
Oh, yeah, please do. Yeah, they've announced that they are doing a show again next year, which is brilliant.
Yes, me and my lovely wife are looking forward to that. That'll be good.
Fantastic. Is she a guitar player or maker as well?
She's not yet. My GGBO for this year is actually for her. I'm building it for her, so yeah, she's itching for me to get it finished so she can actually get her hands on it.
Oh, amazing. It's brilliant. I know Scott has made for his family before. Something special.
I really enjoyed Kai's build last year. That was absolutely awesome. His reaction was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was tired. I mean, we had just picked him up and, had to drive 2 hours to get home. And it's like, come out to the garage. I got something for you to see. So
it was more disturbing with the cut from him. It's like, that's so awesome. Thank you so much. And then you in that wig with the bath towel running around your garden playing it. That was an interesting mix.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to retire Scott Tina because, anybody who hasn't been watching all these GGBOs are going to be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Yeah. Hey, look, we should definitely talk a bit about the Great Guitar Build-Off. I'm sure most people that watching the stream know about it. If not, it's a thing that's been going on for a few years. And today is the deadline. Is that right? For submitting your entries for the various different competitions. So there's people that have built a guitar from scratch, people that have built a kit guitar, or you can build a guitar from scratch, but if you use a neck that you bought in, that counts as a kit guitar. And actually I heard Ben Crow, who is the person that basically initiated it all, and it's through his channel Crimson Guitars, say the other day that he thinks that if you're getting into guitar building, buying in a neck is a great way to do it because you don't want to take on learning everything all at once. So do it in stages. And I thought that was very sensible. And there's also a freestyle competition for people that are making guitar-like instruments. So I think that's ukuleles and things. There was a comment in the chat, Curtis, from Bart, saying you were close to competing a couple of weeks ago. How much more do you need to do?
Unfortunately, a little bit. My luck this last month has sucked. As of yesterday, I'm now technically unemployed. I've pretty much everything that could go wrong this last month has. And I did put on the Guitar Builders Collective and the GGBO groups on Facebook, just telling people I was going to be late. This whole year has been difficult for me, so the whole worrying about deadlines like last year wasn't going to be an option. So that's why I went into the community category. So there is no competition, there is no voting. If I'm late, I'm late. So it kind of took a lot of the pressure off, which helped me this year. But Bart, to answer your question, I've still got to do the resin inlays. I need to do the fretwork, and then I need to wire it and put it together. So I'm hoping I've got a week's work. I'm hoping to shoehorn that into one last episode. So if you want a 3-hour extravaganza, then keep an eye channel in the next couple of weeks.
That's a fair.
Look, obviously rubbish news, but I hope that a bit of guitar building can help alleviate that. I know a lot of people, especially I do this, find it a real meditative way to forget what's going on sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that anyone in the audience who are married and know this, I've been promising to do a lot of jobs around the house over the last 2 years. And everyone's answer is always the same. Yes, my love, I will get to that when I can, when I've got some spare time. Unfortunately, now it's spare time, so I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Oh, well, at least the guitar is for your wife to help that out. Listen, I know you might not want to show it off in the non-finished stage, but have you got something you can show us with the guitar?
I'm quite happy to. The neck is pretty much all done. Oh, yeah, we can see the engraving work on there. So that's all spray painted and ready to go. I've just taped up, ready to do the fretwork. And the body is now all sprayed up and looking presentable.
And did you say you're going to put resin in the zombie bit that's at the top?
Yes, you've got the zombie section there. We're going to go rainbow colours for each letter. Oh, no, things are on the wrong side. So each letter going down will be a different colour, and then that will match the stripes on the headstock. So, yeah, that's the plan. And then 6 tons of different electronics cavities to fill, so that'll be fun.
So what is that? Because I was looking at it earlier, and what's the little pocket that's up sort of at the bottom? That's like a big rectangle cut out there in the back.
Where are we? Get the light. This section here. I'm putting a silent piezo system in there, similar to the Yamaha guitars they were selling, the ones that just had the central section and then the metal outline. I remember my dad's face when I was learning to play violin as a kid, and the strangled cat sound he had to listen to for 2 years was enough to kill anyone. So I figured with my wife learning, if I put a silent piezo system in there as well as humbuckers, then she can just plug in a set of headphones. It's got a 9-volt battery. She can play away to her heart's content. And yeah, so that was the theory.
Amazing.
The first guitar I made for my kiddo, I got him a little headphone amp. You've seen those little box headphone amps, but that sounds like a better solution.
Well, the original plan was to actually have strangled cat. Thanks, Mick. But yeah, no, the original plan was to actually have a fabric topped guitar and then have most of the body completely hollow. So the silent piezo was always the plan. But then I spoke to my gorgeous wife, and she said, actually, I want a different shape. I kind of like the BC Rich Zombie. I'm like, that's not a first guitar, babe. That's really not a first guitar. That's a Kerry King special. Don't do it. But that's what she wanted.
There you go.
Well, I think your first guitar, if it's what you want, that's brilliant, because it makes it even more special and maybe encourage you more to play. I just did a paint job for someone. He bought his daughter a cheap guitar. She just never used it, but she's obsessed with the Avengers. So I did a little Avengers paint job on it with a logo, and apparently she's playing it now. So subtle bits can change your connection to it, maybe somehow. That's
awesome. I like that.
Hey, off camera, just before we started, you were talking, Curtis, about how you made the guitar and doing a freehand route for all of it.
Yeah, more laziness than anything. My first guitar build was literally just strips of wood that I glued together, my balsa wood guitar for last year's GGBO. So there wasn't actually any routing to be done. So I figured this time I would need to, but I didn't have the money to buy templates, and I didn't have the time or the energy to make templates. So it was a case of freehand routing was my only option. Luckily, I've spent most of my life making very large things with the tiny little Dremel, so I'm quite good with, using those kind of things. So I just thought, I'll give it a go. It's a painted guitar. If I screw it up, I can just inlay other pieces of wood or put a load of resin or filler and botch it. And fingers crossed, I actually got really lucky and I didn't screw up any of the routing. Not until I started drilling all of the access holes for the multiple electronics cavities and blew a hole straight through the front of the guitar. But a little bit of filler, not a major issue.
You won't be the first. You're not the first and won't be the last to do that hole through the guitar. It's so common. But yeah, great that you could fill it and hide it. So where does your experience with the Dremel come from? What sort of things do you make that's small?
Well, I've been making low-budget movie props and costume pieces since I was a teenager. I started out making Slipknot masks. I got into heavy metal in my late teens, and Slipknot were my first big obsession. And I went to my first, I think it was Ozfest, 98 or 99. And there was a bunch of kids running around with ex-military gas masks and blue boiler suits with white paint splashed all over them. And they thought they looked awesome. And I rather unnicely thought they looked like idiots. So I thought, well, I could do better. I'm going to do this. So I taught myself fiberglass. I taught myself leather work. I taught myself to sew. And I actually made custom masks, custom boiler suits.
Amazing.
And yeah, I was known as the crazy guy with the boiler suits and the masks. Even the most hardcore Slipknot fans looked at me like I was special needs. So I was doing well. But yeah, so I've spent a lot of time just, mostly with fiberglass. I taught myself because I had a motorcycle, and if I wanted something custom or I wanted to repair something, I had no money, so I had to learn to fix it myself. So, yeah, you kind of necessity breeds a lot of invention.
And were you making masks for other people, or just like a variety for yourself?
Oh God, I've made masks for God knows how many people. Everything from people doing photo shoots and need something interesting to goth fetish people that want custom gas masks or custom things to go with certain outfits. I had planned to make my own line of fashion gas masks. So you could actually wear something really kind of military looking and industrial, but have it lightweight and that you could wear out clubbing. Unfortunately, the templates I got finished in 2019, and a year later, I didn't want to be associated with wearing masks for some reason.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
And I didn't want people confusing them with something that they could actually wear to the shops. So that kind of idea kind of died.
Yeah. Oh, that's how the world works sometimes. But people have been saying in the chat, and I agree, that's really creative and really amazing, Curtis.
Thank you.
I can see how that's translating across with the guitar not being just a normal guitar and having the... Oh, let's see if I can make you extra super large there so we can see that.
Yeah, I did. I used to be a door security back in the day, and they used to do UV nights occasionally, and you just get these kids off their face on ketamine, hanging out in the corner watching all the pretty lights. So I actually made this is a mold from an Israeli military gas mask, and it's literally where are we? Just a fabric shell, and then you put soft battening over it, and then any fabric you want, camo, whatever. So that was the original things I used to make.
Someone's put in the chat, you'll have to make a guitar. Oh, it's Mick. You've got to make a guitar that's also a mask.
I have been looking at that recently.
Oh, nice.
I've been looking at a lot of the AI image generators over the last couple of months, and I did see an image of a Flying V style guitar, but near the headstock, it actually expanded out into a skull, and I thought, oh, that might be slightly unplayable, but it's very cool looking.
Yeah,
So,
amazing. Absolutely right up my street, this sort of stuff. I don't know. So obviously on YouTube you follow guitar builders, but do you also follow prop makers and costume makers and set builders and things?
I follow so many different things on YouTube. I rarely watch TV anymore because it's getting a bit derivative. So I watch everything from motorcycle and car builders, like Mighty Car Mods, B is for Build, a lot of the sort of crazy people making weird vehicles. You've got people like Punished Props. Build Arran is an amazing prop builder. You've got Evil Ted Smith. He's an amazing prop builder. There's a lot of people out there who do these kind of things, and my original plan before I was building the guitars was to actually show people how to make the props and the masks. But again, 2020, I didn't want to be the guy showing people how to make crap masks. I thought, no thanks.
Well, I'm sure they wouldn't be crap masks, but I understand totally. I'm going to have to go back, watch this back, and look up those prop builders. It's something that during lockdown I discovered lots of prop builders and cosplay costume makers, and I just found it absolutely fascinating because a lot of it was just processes that I'd not used before but seemed very accessible. But obviously the people I was watching were very talented at it, and so I didn't expect I could be that good, but I could see that there'd be a journey towards that through the learning with those people. But then
the interesting thing with prop builders is that they are probably the most experienced people I've ever come across when it comes to different materials. Most prop builders, especially professional prop builders, they can weld, they do woodwork, fiberglass, upholstery. They can do pretty much any trade you can imagine. And most props are built out of everything from timber to polystyrene to whatever. And I've always known, it's kind of a joke within the industry, that if you want to join one random thing to another random thing, ask a prop builder, because they will tell you exactly which adhesive to use. Because they've done it all for 30 years. They know.
Yeah, I've watched several of those guys, but somewhere along the line, I just got on. I fell into watching, mostly costume builders, EVA foam stuff, which was just fascinating to watch, and that kind of led me into that rabbit hole.
It's something that I dabbled with, but I found that my precision level wasn't quite the same. That the amount of work you've got to do into making your templates, printing out your designs. I'm not very good with the computers side of things. I can't do Photoshop. I wish I could. But yeah, you've got to really have your detail down. With guitar building, it's a little bit more forgiving. It's wood. If you screw up, you can fill it, or you can patch it, or you can do something. If you make a slip on an EVA foam piece, that's it. You've got to throw it away and start again. Now I know people like Ben from Crimson Guitars, if he screwed up, or even our lovely friend Todd in the chat, got 90% through building his GGBO build and had a slight mistake and decided to build it all over again. You wonderful lunatic.
Yeah, I think that's why, I've said this before, that's one reason I quite like making the relic guitars I make, and I've made a couple that are kind of prop-like guitars. And if they get damaged, I try to make that a part of it as opposed to the fix. And I'd have a big worry if I bought really expensive wood and was trying to get something so really perfect that I couldn't hide my mistakes in the way I can with the paint, like you're saying, filler and paint, or like with a relic, a dent in it. Well, that was meant to be there, or that's a bonus kind of thing.
I started out as a decorator back in the day with my dad, and he taught me, and Ben's even said it on some of his live streams, is that if you make a mistake, you either hide it well or make it a feature.
Yeah.
You either make it disappear, or you tell people it was always meant to be there and you exaggerate it. And I think that's the same with any of it. You know, if you blow a hole through the front of your guitar, see if you can move the volume pot over there. You know, just see if you can get away with it.
Yeah. I
don't know why what first came to mind talking about this. Macaroni noises last year, that little kit, the Toman kit competition. I had this thing hanging. The body was hanging in the just outside the shop in the backyard. There's the trellis thing that is there for God knows what reason. What's great for hanging stuff. All right, so because I'm spray painting it, and at one point the eye bolt that I had put in the strap button place just came out, and this thing dropped and bounced off the sidewalk, and there's a lot of texture in the sidewalk. It's gravelly kind of, and just dinged the shit out of it in a couple places, and I just kept spray painting. But it's not like I was doing that for a client. It was a shitty kit, but I don't know what I would have done with that. I don't know. Sandbag all that paint and try to steam the dents out, I guess. I don't know.
Considering how much effort you went into the whole resin and the macaroni anyway, yeah, I think a legendary paint job would have been only the right thing for that. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. Since it was painted, I could have filled that with epoxy, but I mean, it was at the finish line. It's a piece of trash anyway. It was just for fun, so I just kind of hit it on camera and went on with life. It really is a trash guitar. I want to love it, but it's trash.
I really enjoyed that series. I think didn't Luther make his into a fishing? It was a fishing rod stroke guitar, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had a pun in it, but I can't remember what it was. Was it a bass guitar? Or no, it wasn't. It was an actual guitar. Wasn't it?
A bass guitar, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was brilliant. They didn't do that again this year, Toman, the kind of DIY kit competition. But it was one thing I liked about it is because lots of people use it as an excuse to do something a bit ridiculous or a bit different. It had a lot of variety and a lot of creativity in it. It was brilliant. Yeah.
One of the dudes absolutely loved mine, but I guess the rest didn't. I got the impression the company wasn't, super, keen on making kind of a joke build into their number one.
Yeah. Which
fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. Macaroni noises could have sold them a whole lot of kits. You never know.
I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure.
So, Curtis, how did you make your move then into, or not move? Maybe you're still doing the masks and things, but how did you get into the guitar building side of things?
Well, the year was 2020. I was a site manager at a primary school, and this lovely little virus appeared and forced everyone to do a government-inspired Netflix and chill for 6 months. Unfortunately, I was one of the few essential workers, and I had to go to the school every day, even though we had 4 students, 1 head teacher, 1 teacher, and a woman who made the sandwiches for 6 months. Combined with that, I take immunosuppressants for a spinal condition. So the head teacher took that very seriously and said that I wasn't allowed within 50 feet of any humans at all. So I was basically quarantined to the top floor of this school for 6 months and couldn't do anything.
That's mad that you had to go in and still quarantine there.
I was the guy with the keys, so it was, and you have to have a member of maintenance there legally. I was also health and safety lead, so I had to be on site. Right. So I had loads of materials there, and I decided, because my desk was really tiny, I think I had the BMS computer, I had the CCTV computer, and my computer all on one desk. And as sure Scott will allude to, 3 computers and 4 monitors on one desk is a bit cramped. So I decided I was going to make my own custom desk, and I wanted to do a river table with the resin. But I didn't have any nice walnut slabs, so I was going to use just chunks and make my own river out of 1 inch by 1 inch pieces of wood and do it that way. So I had the timber, I had the resin, and then I did my YouTube education, which was a thing for most site managers, which is, I don't know how to work that, I don't know how to fix that, I'm going to watch on YouTube and then I'll learn. So I started watching resin videos, and I stumbled across Ben Crimson Guitars, his resin build, where he did the bog oak and the gold leaf clear resin guitar. And I was amazed. I'd never considered guitar building as an interest, but I loved his style. The comedy, the information, the whole thing really kind of spoke to me. And then I went back and I watched the complication build, and I watched the 12-hour, and I watched the 6-hour, and I watched the 24-hour, and I watched the many 1-day stroke 22-day builds. And yeah, I was hooked. I was really enjoying it. And about that time, Ben had relocated to home because he was isolating as well. So at least twice a week we were having the live stream builds that he was doing, the Cyberpunk build, Shrek's little brother, a couple of other bits. And then I got to know people like Scott, Todd, Bill from Borgonian Evolution, Big Unit. There was loads of people that I kind of got to know through the chat. And then once they announced the proper GGBO competition rather than the 2020 build along, I didn't have time to do the 2021, but I was just adamant that I'd have to get started on 2022.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I've lost where it was now. Mick said, I wonder how many guitar builders started in 2020. And I know I've heard Ben say how amazing it is when people come up to him and say, I've started building because of you. But I do wonder if he realizes just how many people have, or how many people have progressed even more because of him. It's a great thing.
Well, this is the interesting thing for me, is that a lot of people don't believe that I can't play. I can't play at all. I had to teach myself the intro that I did for my first GGBO build, Smoke on the Water, which is the first thing anyone ever learns. But I had to YouTube that and learn it just so I could do my sound demo, because I can't play at all.
Do you know how many builders can't play? There are a lot of builders that can't play.
No, I know,
but I mean that explains. I mean, Leo's product was trash, but there are a lot of builders who don't play. It seems like out in the world, those who can't teach, and when it comes to guitar, those who can't build. Because I understand the fascination with the guitar, and you want to, but sometimes, I mean, playing's just not an option. But this lets you still have something to do with it and be involved. But that seems to be fairly common.
That's the difference for me, though, is that you get people like yourself and like Ben from Crimson and people who say, "Oh, I can't really play." It's like, you can, you just not Steve Vai.
Yeah,
and that's fair enough. Not many people are. I think only one person is. But yeah, it's fair enough. But I really can't play, and I get people like, "But how the hell do you know how to play a guitar? Because surely you need to know what string height you like. You need to know what action you like. You need to kind of know a bit about it in order to set it up properly." And that's probably true, but thankfully I've got amazing teachers like Ben, Sean, Alwyn Lutherie, Todd, Sweet Tea, who teach you the technical things you need to know. So
Well, think about turning that around the other way and how many guitarists don't know shit about their guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire time I was a kid playing guitar, I played all the time. I had no idea. If I'd gone dinking around with anything, I would have screwed it up, and I wouldn't have been able to fix it.
I've got a title for a video now, Scott. I'm gonna be editing some clips from various videos, and it's gonna be guitarists don't know shit, and it's gonna be you explaining how many guitarists don't know, because you're absolutely right. It happens a lot, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, I've thought about it recently. The second guitar I ever had, which I was still in high school, I still have that guitar, and I love it. The electronics are starting to fail on it, but it's still set up awesome. And I think about now, doing setups on builds, how much I never even touched setup on like this guitar that is so old. It's never been changed because I was just clueless. You don't really know much about the anatomy or your guitar or anything. Hell, for the longest time, I didn't know what the selector switch actually did on like a Les Paul. So what the hell does this mean? Because it doesn't say neck, bridge. It's treble, bass, or whatever. I didn't know. I didn't know the pickup closer to the middle of the string was a deeper, muddier sound, and close to the bridge it was bright. I didn't know this. Nothing about the anatomy of the guitar did I really know.
Yeah, it's surprising. I because I've started in repairs, I deal with people that can play really well and do it a lot. And someone brought me a guitar in, and I noticed that their pickup selector switch wasn't the standard. It was a Strat, wasn't the standard sort of 5-way. It was doing coil splits and stuff, and they had no idea. They just knew they liked this position and that position, which is fair enough. That's all they needed to know. But yeah. So Curtis, if after Smoke on the Water, have you carried on learning, or are you not that bothered?
I'm building guitars now. I don't need to know how to play it. Come on.
Is that going to be for every build?
A couple of years ago, I promised myself I would practice more so I can play more, because I used to love playing. And I realised the time I was spending trying to practice, I'd rather be building. So, yeah, just like you, it's not my priority anymore. The building is, definitely.
Well, to be honest, now I know you're so close, I might be coming down to yours so you can do my sound demos.
Oh, yeah, well, you can do a Spoke on the Water sound demo on mine. Oh, no, it'd be absolutely great to meet up. One of the things, I've said this before, I like about shows is meeting people that are either guitar builders or interested in guitars, because it's rare you get to chat to people, especially when you're working in a workshop on your own for so long. Or so.
I mean, the guitar show that you were at, the Brighton Guitar Show, that was my first time ever going to one, and it was purely a research trip for me. I wanted to see what people were building, because my exposure to guitars is the internet. So other than a few S-type knockoffs that I've bought cheap on Amazon Marketplace or Facebook Marketplace, so I walked in there, and I met Chris Franklin, who was a really nice guy. I had a chat with him. But I must have annoyed so many of these builders, because they're obviously there to either get their card out or sell a guitar. And all I'm doing is picking their brains about exactly what size nut they used, and what have you got in there, and what little bit is that? That looks really interesting. And my wife's like, what's that? And I'm explaining what little I know, like I'm some kind of expert, and I know nothing. And all these builders are like, yeah, great, cool. Do you want to play it? I'm like, I can't play. And they're like, what the hell are you doing at a guitar show then? Calm down.
I would definitely say that for me, I love meeting people that build things and talking about it. But I did speak to some builders that do get frustrated when someone comes along with a guitar they built and wants to show you the guitar, the physical guitar they brought along to the show, and talk to you about it, and don't interact with you about your guitars at all. So it's just a one-way, them showing what they've done. And apparently that's a regular thing at shows. I guess it's that same thing. They've got no one to talk to, which is why communities like this, the chat on the Crimson Channels is a chance to have those conversations.
I mean, that would be a bit weird. I mean, surely I'd tell him, just go get your own booth next year, man, go away. But swings and roundabouts, I mean, like Scott was showing on the Facebook page, you know, the beautiful purple top that he did with the stains and everything like that. I can imagine him just running around his neighborhood going, look at my guitar, it's like you.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice that we have that place to do that. So,
yeah, I don't have that place. I have the mixed feelings of walking it up the stairs to my apartment, thinking, so I hope somebody sees it, and at the same time, I hope none of these losers see it and try to make it in my place. See, yeah, I worry about that. Some, you know, people see me hauling these guitars up to my apartment, you know, so make it a target for, you know, burglars.
One of the things that made me laugh from last year's GGBO was Bill Borgonian Evolution in the chat. He builds most of his guitars either in his, I think it's his kitchen. He's got like a table in his kitchen, or he's on his balcony. And he was clear coating the Explorer he made last year. And it looked like it was just out on the communal grass in between all these apartments. And I can imagine all these people just looking at this crazy guy with a mic stand with a guitar hanging off of it, and him just like spraying away with this gas mask on.
I don't know, these days with crazy people recording themselves for junk, you know, he could have been doing it in a thong and dancing, and they probably just walked by like, oh, okay.
I don't remember Bill being on camera. He might have been doing that.
It's true.
Well, a blonde wig and a towel, maybe. I don't know.
He didn't seem quite that weird. But...
look, when we were talking about doing this, Curtis, you mentioned an interest in kind of alternative approaches and materials and things. And one thing I've liked on your YouTube channel, and also what you're doing for that Luthier's lunch break, quick plug here. Every Friday I'm putting up a little compilation show of short clips from different guitar builders from around the world. Curtis has had a few contributions where he's made alternatives to tools that you can buy. So bench cookies the first time, not straight edges. And I'm not going to ruin what's in next Fridays, but just to show Curtis, I'm not using silver, but I've started putting white on my rulers ready to do what's on next week's show. But what I was going to say is, yeah, you were suggesting that you're keen on talking about alternative ways of working. And I loved in your video, you were talking about one of them, it was a car boot sale and buying old tools and things. What?
Well, I mean, it's... The STUMAC tax seems to be a very real thing. I know there are different places to buy your stuff from, but you know, for my most recent build, I got a load of strips of pine and glued them together to a slab, made sure I primed it properly, but sorted. STUMAC are selling pine slabs for $60, $70, $80 for the cheapest piece of wood you can buy. And it's the same with a lot of the tools. A lot of the tools you can get secondhand, that you don't need to spend a fortune on. You don't need to spend $100 on a set of nut files. If you don't have the time or the energy, then yes, do that. But most of us don't have the kind of money to be able to do this kind of stuff. And it's the same for materials as well. You know, if you can build your own tools, do that, and then you can save money on the expensive stuff you do need. You know, if you need to buy a decent router or, you know, whatever. And it's similar with the materials, and this is going to be a contentious subject. And I'm sat here with Scott, the king of getting really beautiful, expensive pieces of wood and turning them into guitars. But I have a big issue with getting a ginormous slab of whatever expensive crazy wood, buying it from Africa, shipping it halfway across the planet, to then decide I'm going to make a hollow-bodied arch top and then take a router and turn 60% of it into sawdust. What was the point?
That's a total ethical reason as well.
and I don't understand it. And this is another contentious issue that I don't understand, and please correct me. Why do people care so much about the back of the guitar? When you're playing it, you can't see it. When it's hung on a wall, you can't see it. The only time anyone looks at the back of the guitar is when they really want to look at the back of the guitar. 98.99% of the time, who cares if it's a different piece of wood or whatever else, but people will take really gorgeous pieces of wood and then mill the hell out of it so the back of their guitar looks crisp. Who cares?
No, that's a really good point. And also a good point from back to what you were saying before, if you're painting over something anyway.
But this is my issue, is that, you know, I'm not going to rag on anyone in particular. I know Ben did his Cowrie build recently. That was a commission, so we won't go there. But I watched a video early on in my days of learning, and this guy got this, I can't remember what it was. It was African mahogany, sapele something, whatever it was. I don't think it was the rarest piece of wood, but it was a big chunk of expensive wood. And he routed the hell out of it, and he turned most of it into sawdust, and then stuck a maple top on it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why? You could have had anything for that body. You could have used sawdust and glue for the body. Who cares? What was the point? And it's, I don't understand why you can't look for other options. I mean, a lot of people say you shouldn't use pine because it's too soft and things like that. It might ding. But there are so many local options for beautiful woods in the UK.
You're absolutely right. And people, I've met a number of boutique builders now that are using things like loft joists or scaffolding boards, just reusing bits of wood to make bodies that seem really good and quite bespoke. And some of them have this kind of unique finish because of the previous use of the wood before. Hey, even Mark Gutierrez, for his invitational build this year, used a chopping board.
Well, this is exactly it. I mean, I was chatting to him during that build on the comments, because my first GGBO build, the fretboard is exactly that. It's a bamboo chopping board, and I absolutely love it. And a lot of people commented on how they loved, you know, the grain patterns going through. That cost me £4 from the pound shop. So
wait, the pound shop's inflated prices there. £4.
Nothing. I'm sure Scott can say for the Dollar Tree, there's nothing that's actually $1.
Yeah. But still, that is remarkable, because, like you said, people commenting on the look of it as well. And I always go on about how I think the look of a guitar is important. And people, when they're talking about buying a really expensive flame top for their guitar, it's because of the look. Look, Scott's not impressed with this conversation. Because they got the look of it. And if you're buying bamboo for your fretboard and it looks amazing and looks different, that's definitely a selling feature.
I mean, the way I see it is that, you know, use the expensive woods, but just use them carefully. You know, keep the offcuts. I believe Scott's build last year, where he did the multi-laminate fretboard with Purple Heart and everything. You know, that's a really good way of using up those leftovers. You know, make veneers, do different things with it. There's nothing wrong with having good quality woods, but, you know, don't throw them all in a skip when you're done. You know, just be a bit more careful with how you use these things. And I'm a big fan of, you know, using like laminates and carbon fiber and loads of other materials. I know I'm not going to use the word resin. I don't want to set Scott off. But there's so many different options out there.
I'm currently repainting an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. and the client I'm doing it for, we're using that because he's played a few before and really liked the sound of them for the cost. And I was very surprised when I stripped it that it's plywood. So around the edges, you can just see the layers of the pine. So where I was Again, it says partly relic. Look, I would normally leave a bit of the edge there so you can see the grain. You can see the plywood. And I'm not sure whether that's something you want to see or not. But you didn't know it was there before because it's under that thick paint. Who would have known?
Yeah, I've always tried to, of course, most of those woods are just super expensive. So I've tried to, I'm always worried about wasting it. And I have mountains of scraps that I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with.
Was it you or Ty that mentioned trying to find pen builders, people that...
Yeah, we've talked about that some before. Pen builders and knife builders. Always
knife builders.
Handles. I've thought about, on the weekends when I'm in the shop, just trying to find some way to advertise to let people know that they can come rummage through my scraps for, knife handles and stuff. At least, all these wonderful pieces of wood could go to a new home.
Yeah. Jack, who was on a few weeks ago talking about CNCs, he says that the workshop he uses, he pays rent on, and his rent is more or less covered by the things he makes with his offcuts of his guitars. So he makes little pots that look like plectrums, that plectrum holders, I guess, or anything you want to put in it, but they're made of the same wood that the guitar would be made from. And people like that idea, knowing that it is, in some ways, not recycled, but reusing the scraps, and it is a actual guitar wood product.
I've had people ask for offcuts from neck laminates, they wanted to do something with, but
it's also not just the scrap side of things, but just buying local. I mean, I'm a big fan of either recycled materials or local. I'm really lucky halfway between where I live and where Daniel lives. There's a place called Burgess Hill, and there's actually a lady, I've messaged her a few times on Facebook Marketplace, and she mills her own lumber. And she's got yew and birch and loads of really beautiful British native trees that she's selling as slabs. And I'll send Daniel the link if he's interested. But you can get some really beautiful local woods. It doesn't have to be, walnut. It doesn't. If that's not local to you, use London plane, use birch, use oak, use, the woods you have local.
We had Chris Hatton on from King Bespoke Creations a while ago, and he's making guitars out of what's essentially furniture. It's the pews from his local church they were getting rid of. So it's this amazing quality wood that was used on great furniture. I think he said it was 150 years old or 100 years old. And there's definitely a place in Brighton that I haven't checked out yet that does a reclaimed and recycled wood that's come from furniture and things like that might be a way forward.
I got a hold of a couple tabletops from a school that are huge, and we're talking like at least 2-inch thick solid rock maple, and the stuff that they used to make those tables out of, I mean, it is as flat as it could ever possibly be. Unfortunately, it's kind of pieced together, and it's not particularly attractive maple, so neck strikes, there's not a whole lot I can do with it, but there's a lot of material.
Yeah, again, I guess it's back to how you're using it, because if you're using it to paint over, it doesn't matter that much. And actually, that goes back to what I've said before, in that before I came across boutique guitar builders, I found the wood grain finished guitars from factories often quite boring to look at. And when you get someone that's really picking their wood because of the finish to make a boutique guitar, it's on a whole different level. It looks totally different to what you get in a factory. Yeah, but
maple is one of those that's just so dense and heavy that it would be a terrible choice for a body, unless you were gonna, chamber it or hollow. But
Nick just said something about the Gibson Rainforest series. I don't know if this is a joke or if this is a thing. Maybe you could put that in there.
Sounds like a joke.
Yeah.
I don't want to ask. But I mean, I'm lucky because the timber I used for this year's GGBO build actually came from a local manufacturer. They actually build like door frames and things like that for construction, but it's all very high-end stuff. So I get tons and tons and tons of pine offcuts from where they use their CNC machines. And they've also given me loads of meter and a half long chunks of engineered oak. So it's loads of little strips of oak glued together to make a solid piece. And a lot of people would look at that and go, oh, I wouldn't use that. But if you use it with some laminates in there, you wouldn't be able to tell. It will look absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It's actually my plan for my upcoming Jurg's Cup build. I'm actually going to be using that oak, and I'm going to experiment with using paper as veneers.
Oh, interesting. Do you know, I think there must be a market for people who want to do that kind of ethically sourced or recycled guitar kind of thing. There was a guitar company I've mentioned here before, and I cannot remember their name, but they, on each of their guitars, has on it the date and the geolocation of where the tree they got it from was felled, because it's all locally sourced lumber. And I thought that was, again, another really interesting addition to the guitar that makes it have a story and make it very unique.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, they are more environmentally conscious now. Thanks to the internet, you can't really sort of stick your head in the sand as much as you used to. And you don't have to be crazy environmentally conscious on everything, otherwise you'd never leave your house. But you can make certain choices. I mean, myself, I don't use any bone nuts. I'm not vegetarian myself, but I could understand why a vegetarian person wouldn't want to go anywhere near my guitar if it had animal products in it. So it's kind of having those thoughts. I recycle a lot of electronics from my previous life doing electrics. So I always reuse wire that I have and certain components. Most of my wood that I use is recycled materials. So if 70-80% of your guitar is recycled in some way, then there's no problem buying the expensive tuners or the other bits and pieces. You can kind of still have that good conscience on it.
And it also goes into the cost, because I like what you're saying about how buying wood from companies that sell it for guitar builders can be very expensive. And I noticed your most recent series for the Great Guitar Build-Off, you're describing it as how to build a guitar at the same cost as buying one from Wish. Am I phrasing that right? I thought that was a good tag, a good way in.
It's exactly that. I mean, when you're starting out in the guitar, you can't afford to buy Goto-looking tuners. You just can't. You can't afford to buy Seymour Duncan pickups. Or Fishman Fluence or whatever. You can't afford to spend $700, $800, $900 on the parts to build a guitar that's probably going to be a pretty crap guitar. You're not going to do that. So
I had a whole lot of builds that were furnished well. They were I don't know what the word is. The electronics came from a Guitar Fetish, the cheapest stuff you can get your damn hands on.
I know you mentioned the Jurg's Cup then, Curtis, but the theme of that is I'm always getting this wrong. Using what you've got, or is that how it's phrased? For people that don't know what the Jurg's Cup is, there's a link in the description to this, to the Guitar Builders Collective website, which on it has got a page dedicated to the Jurg's Cup and what it's all about. But it's named after somebody who was a real part of the Great Guitar Build-Off in the sort of support and the commentary that went on. And where he died earlier this year, and it's an opportunity to build something kind of in his name and in his memory, but that is all community based. So although it's not really a massive competition or anything, there's no dead ways to put things up. We're just sharing online and sharing as a community, and it's really good. And his name was Jürgen Zoller. It's Yeah, I've heard Arran mention before, if you go back and look at comments on videos from the guitar build-offs of the last few years, he's all over it because he was just such a good interactive person, supportive person. And one thing I'm looking forward to about doing this build is going through everything I've got in my workshop that's just been left over from other guitars. So all the pickups I haven't used, all the little components and stuff. And I'm going to try and make as many very small, cheap guitars as I can out of all of those bits and see what comes of that. Because otherwise, it's just like my dad hoarding things in his garage. It'd be there for years. So I do like the idea, Curtis, of getting in touch with someone local that I can get some wood from, because that was the only thing I haven't got enough of is wood to make guitars. So yeah, doing some recycling is the way forward, I think.
It's hard to have this conversation with me. Everything sounds dirty. But to find somebody local who give you wood, yeah. Sorry. I try to avoid the innuendo, but it's hard.
I wonder how much of the innuendo is very different in across the pond.
Yeah, there's decent.
Or you're just dirtier than us.
You'd be surprised though. Jackson, Big Unit Guitars, he was commenting on Ben's live stream yesterday, and we were saying about the difference between the UK and America, and we mentioned the pound shop, and he said, that sounds like a whorehouse.
Yeah, Poundland. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pound shop, Poundland.
It was 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was the first GGBO. It was some live stream, and I commented, I can't believe Ben's seen my junk. And he read that, and he was like, nah, I don't want to see that. But okay, that one translates.
You'd be amazed. I was chatting to a friend about this recently, that the Americanisms translate well to the UK because we watch a lot of American shows here. Whereas, as far as I'm aware, in America, all you guys ever see is Monty Python or Red Dwarf. And that's about it.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I've just started reading again. I started ages ago and then gave up for a bit for some reason, a book about the history of guitars. And it's just focusing on the period of the Beatles and the rise of the Rickenbacker because of the Beatles. So Rickenbacker were a small company, but when they were in Germany, both John Lennon and George Harrison bought some Rickenbacker guitars and they were playing them. So Rickenbacker is based in America. Beatles are British. They broke in England a year before they broke over in America. And when they first broke in America, they went over and played on the Ed Sullivan Show. And on the day they were playing on the Ed Sullivan Show, the person that ran the Rickenbacker company in America went to visit them in their hotel room to try and promote their new guitars, which they successfully did. And they just grew massive because of the Beatles. But Rickenbacker just weren't aware of the fact the Beatles were playing them in the UK, because in America at the time, no one was really aware of the Beatles because things didn't travel cross continent. And it was somebody who was somehow distributor for Rickenbacker in the UK was sending physical newspaper cuttings of the Beatles playing the instruments over to America for them to show how big this band were and how you've got to get on board with them before they start playing Fenders, and for your chance to sort of expand exponentially. I just thought it was interesting how different the world was 60 years ago, really.
Crazy.
This is it, I wouldn't have found guitar building if it wasn't for YouTube. So, back then, unless you had an interest or, played guitars and needed or wanted something different that you couldn't buy or couldn't get, you built your own things. But yeah, now thanks to the internet, even an idiot like me can start building stuff just by watching a few YouTube videos. So yeah.
I've had people ask, where did you learn all this? And I'm like, YouTube. And they have to laugh, and I'm thinking, surely there's more to it, but no, not really. yeah, it's pretty much all YouTube.
I've learned so much thanks to you. I learned to repair air conditioning units. I learned to fix boilers. You know, anytime I was on a site and something was broken, it was like, right, first thing to do, instruction manual. Nope, YouTube channel. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you got tips as well then, Curtis, for where you get some of your tools from? Save buying the really expensive things.
I think it's more just adapting your process, really. If you watch a lot of the YouTube channels and established builders, everyone would kind of guess the first thing you have to do is buy a bandsaw. No. You know, it's files, things like that. I mean, my first build was almost hand tool only to a point. I did use a sander, I did use a drill, but the vast majority of it was done with hand tools. And as I said, you can do it. It sucks and it takes forever, but you can do it. But power tools really help. I mean, this year I bought a drill press, and I'm using that for everything. I'm using it as a pin router. I'm using it as a spindle sander. I'm using it as much as possible until I kill the bearings, because it cost me £40. And, you know, that is a cheap way of making stuff right. What I've said to people throughout my life is, if you want to get into guitar building or props making or scrapbooking or whatever, buy some cheap materials and a couple of cheap tools and try it and see if you like it. And if you enjoy it, then spend the money and get the specialist tools that you need. If you don't enjoy it, you haven't wasted £6,000 on a load of stuff you're never going to use again.
Yeah, do you know what I've just found interesting about what you said? Because I used to say that, and then I realised with some of the cheap tools I was buying, it doesn't really give you an insight into the more expensive version because they're so rubbish. And when you use the more expensive ones, it's different. But what you've also said is adapt your process, because actually you're right. If you use, you don't need a bandsaw, which just makes it easier. But you can still make a guitar without that. And some people say, oh, well, I haven't got this equipment, there's no point even try it. But you're right, if you adapt and find another way to do it, you absolutely can. Back to what you're saying, you don't need the router template to do it a certain way. Yeah, I think that's an important thing to think about, the way you make things and how you make things.
Yeah, process to do with it. When I started, I had a bandsaw, but it was a really cheap one, and there was no way in hell it would cut through a full neck blank. So I would actually cut the profile on the stripes and then laminate all that together. And that was just my process for the longest time, you know.
This is it. I mean, I had a cheap bandsaw that I was given by a woodworking teacher at one of the previous schools I worked at, and it was a tiny little thing with a blade. It was so small, and you couldn't do anything with it. And I kind of learned from that experience, you don't bother. You're better off with a jigsaw. They're not very accurate. The blade will wander if it's the wrong blade, but if you cut outside the line, you can use Gio Tornelli Guitars. He built all of his guitars with a jigsaw, and he built some really beautiful stuff. So, you know, spending a fortune on the Triton spindle sander, no offense to Triton, you know, good on you. But you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of pounds. You could build a guitar with normal DIY tools you have in the house, and then go and buy your pillar drill, go and buy a decent router table, get bit by bit, find the things that make life easier. And then when you get to the level of, you know, wanting to make your own veneers and things like that, then buy the bandsaw.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when you're saying you're using your pillar drill, your drill press, in these multifunction ways, I definitely had sanding drums that you can put in your drill press that I also used to use in my hand drill. I don't know what that is, a hand drill, before I had a spindle sander. And it's not the same, but it was another way of doing it. And it's interesting. I don't remember discussing that on here before. We just talked about the cheap tools and the more expensive tools as opposed to an alternate way of doing it. And there are so many things that are built to adapt other tools. So I've got an angle grinder, and you can get adapters for it, so you can use it as one of those finger sanders it attaches on. You can also use it as a crosscut, a miter saw, obviously only for small pieces. If you just have the right adapters or the right jigs for it. And Instagram and YouTube are full of people that have made jigs out of wood to hold their tools and use their tools in different ways that I find quite inspirational.
I think it's finding your own way without breaking the bank, I think, is probably the best way to do it.
There are also bad ways to do that too, though. You ever seen somebody clamp a router upside down to the bench and use it as a router table? It was terrifying. So you do have to be safe, but yeah, finding interesting new ways to put your tools to use. Yeah.
I'm going to be doing a whole series next year, hopefully, of just building all of the tools I need. The table saw I have is very, very basic. I got it for Christmas. I think it was like £90, and it's not great. So I'm going to make my own table saw from a skill saw that I have, make my own wooden top for it, make my own crosscut sled. I've got my router. I've got a cheap aluminium faceplate that I got from Wish. I'm going to make my own router table and just kit it out, because my workshop is so tiny. I need to make sure that everything I've got fits in the spots I have. So, yeah.
I think this ruler, I think I got like 5 in a pack for a couple of quid. And the thing I'm doing on it that Curtis recommended, the alternate version of that is like 15 quid, 10, 15 quid. And that's not cost me like whatever that was, like 20p. It's so brilliant. And I hadn't thought of that. So thank you, Curtis, for a brilliant suggestion, which everyone else will find out about in a week or so. Unless you can guess. Guesses in the comments. Why have I painted over on Curtis's suggestion the numbers on my ruler?
Stay tuned next week on Friday to find out.
I've done it on 3 of them. It's also one thing I love about YouTube is, especially with guitar building, because I think unlike other things, I've watched lots of guitar builders. Whereas a lot of the time with other things, I'll watch someone show me how to do it, I'll do it, and then I've never got to do that again. But with the guitar building, I've seen the same process, thing done with lots of different techniques or different processes, like different ways to put your frets in, different ways to mark something up, different ways to do a certain type of finish on your guitar. And by watching so many different people, it helps you realize what is the right one for you, because of either the way you work or the tools you've got or the amount of money you've got to spend. Mix there. Yeah.
Well done, Mick. Yes, excellent. Well done. But I completely agree, is that, this is where I'm kind of glad where I've not come from the guitar world, is that I look at things much more objectively, and I look at, fret work and things like that. And it's like, okay, that's the traditional way of doing it. Good on you. Why not try this? And, different perspectives, looking at things from outside in, you might find better ways to do it. You might screw things up, but you might come up with a better way of doing things.
Yeah. Or better way for you, better way for other people. I started following, I'm just going to look his name up. Started following on Instagram someone that I recommend people follow. Actually, let me find it on my computer and I can share the screen. He's developed a new fret pressing call, which is really clever.
Dude, I've avoided for years, and I'm having to build something with jumbo frets, which I now disdain. But, man, trying to hammer those things in it was not working out. I finally had to bite the bullet and order the damn StewMac fret press call, because ridiculous. stupid piece of metal for $78, and then you got to pay, I don't remember how many thousands of dollars for the little brass insert that's 12 radius, and I'm like, I hate you, but I need you. Ugh.
I'm just going to
this is exactly it.
share this.
And every time I look at it for years to come, I will think, ugh. Okay, that's brilliant.
That's snazzy.
So it adjusts to any radius. It's very clever.
That's very cool. I believe I was watching Adam Savage tested, and he was showing off a bench vise that works in the same principle and has loads of little jaws that then conform to any shape.
You're right. I saw that as well. But I hadn't. It didn't occur to me to translate that system into something like this. Anyway, I think it's a really clever idea. Jedward's Guitars. He's, according to his current feed, he's just been milling lots of parts for it, and he's going to start putting them up for sale soon because there's been such an interest since it went up a few weeks ago.
Nice.
It's a clever tool there.
I guess someday we can look forward to Stu Mack selling it for $500.
Fractal Vice.
On discount.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So we're going to look forward, Curtis, I guess, to seeing your great guitar build being finished, and your series coming up next year of how you're doing your studio and workshop. What have you got in mind? Yeah, and your Jörg's Cup you mentioned. Have you already got in mind as well other guitars that you want to build?
Well, I've actually started designing my own. I don't want to do like every. If you want an SG, buy an SG. If you want to do something custom with it, then build it yourself. But I like a lot of sci-fi. I like a lot of post-apocalyptic computer games and shows. I want to do some very different things. And I'm actually taking inspiration from a computer game called Cyberpunk 2077. There's the main protagonist is actually in a band, and there are a lot of very futuristic guitars. So I'm actually designing my own guitar from an inspiration from that game. So I'm hoping to have that design fully fleshed out in the next few weeks, and then I'm considering doing a giveaway build next year. I'm actually going to make two of them side by side, one for me and then one for a subscriber to actually win. So yeah.
We should do a Fallout guitar.
Oh, Bill's just put up something about a cyberpunk music store on his website, or not his website, on YouTube to check out. That sounds interesting.
I'd like to check that. Yeah, definitely.
I'm
actually.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm actually building a Fallout banjo for my my friend Mike. He does all my graphics for me. Very, very awesome guy, and he wanted a junkyard banjo. So I called it Bob, the Bethesda originated banjo, and it's completely inspired by the Fallout game. I'm going to have bottle caps on the back. It's going to have valves and that kind of thing.
Well, I'm thinking, you can kind of go cyber, kind of steampunky, post-apocalyptic, all kinds of craziness. There have, off topic, I was thinking I was just watching this morning, at least one dude, and I know there are a couple others that have started to pop up and announce that they're not going to be able to finish on time. And, my advice, he was like, I'm just going to have to give up. And I'm like, dude, glue some veneer in there. Just pull it together. You do what you got to do. But last week or week before, there was somebody from 2022 that just finished their build. So he's been putting up videos. So I'm going through my searches for GGBO, and he keeps popping up, and I, put him in category, and then realize that's 2022. And then I got to take him back out of the playlist. But just make sure you finish.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, it's the inspiration to start and build and It doesn't matter about the competition. Well, that's what lots of people said with the feedback to Ben when he was talking about running it in a different way next year's. People were less concerned about the competition element and more interested in the community and building.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it seems like they just assumed that people were, looking for prizes and shit. And I don't know anybody that cares about the prizes. There may be some, but I don't know.
It's lovely to win one, but you're not doing it for that, are you?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. The option to do the invitational, the Mark and some of the others, that would have been cool. I'd take that as a prize. Yeah. But yeah, I got my little hand plane that I was given last year as my little bonus prize, and I was more than happy with that. I didn't need anything else.
See, I was afraid to win because I didn't want to be an invitational. That's just too much responsibility.
Mick's asked, Curtis, are you filming your banjo build?
I've done 2 episodes. I filmed them Christmas last year. So yeah, go onto my channel. There is already a couple of episodes.
Yeah, it's the problem I find with filming everything is suddenly you've got too much to film and you're not building. It's hard to get the balance right.
I've got so much footage of partially done builds. I think I've got 2 or 3 different builds that I've started and then had to put to one side because I'm doing the Silent Zombie. And I've got a hard drive full of footage sat there ready to be edited, and there's no point because I'm doing this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you seen, I saw some Vanity Fair first look at the Fallout TV show set. Looks good.
Yeah,
I've never played the game, but I'm aware of it through like general stuff being shared in culture and Instagram stuff. And visually, it always looks amazing.
Oh, the originals.
Me and my friend Mike, we are obsessed with Fallout. We've been playing it for decades. One of the people I mentioned, Evil Ted Smith, he actually worked making the suits for the game. It's called Power Armor in the game. That is amazing. I was watching those this morning, and it's going to be a good show.
I didn't know anything about it. That would be fun to catch. I haven't gotten so much into the newest iterations, but the old stuff.
Oh, you mean the old top-down, old-school Fallout?
Mm-hmm. 1, 2, and then I think Tactics before 3. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm Fallout 3, Fallout 4 kind of guy myself. The top-down was cool, but that was a bit too original GTA for my liking.
Well, Bill's got the disc for Windows 95 if anyone wants to borrow it.
Yeah, I should have one too somewhere. OSR1 at that.
Great. Well, I think if it's all right, we're going to call it to an end there. But what I'm hoping next year is we're going to get lots of people back who have been on before, and it would be great to get a few different people at the same time. So, Curtis, it'd be brilliant to have you back. And maybe, once Jörg's Cup's underway and everyone's reusing materials and using what they've got, and there'll be more of a conversation inspired by today of recycled and reusing materials.
If I can inspire just one person, then I have wasted their time. Thank you.
You wasted a lot of my time yesterday, and I'm very thankful for it.
Awesome.
Nick says, thanks, great chat. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love the range of people that come on. People that are new to making guitars, people that are from woodworking backgrounds, people that are from mask making, people that are from just like total different backgrounds that have all come together because of guitars. It's brilliant.
Well, one of the things I've noticed, there's so many people that we've met through this, the last 3-4 years, and you see a lot of online presence, a lot of comments, but not necessarily, faces and voices. So, people that you've been interacting with for years, to bring them on and talk is pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget, everyone, that you can follow Curtis. I've left the link below to his YouTube channel. And you're also on Facebook, aren't you? I should put the Facebook link in as well. Then we've also got the link for the Guitar Builders Collective, which, as we mentioned earlier, is a website forum where there's lots of people chatting and sharing. It's also on Facebook. We've got a link there. Corey from Saul Goode Guitars manages the Instagram page as well, which is mainly sharing people's builds to help sort of, if you follow that, you can help find out about lots of other builders and things. Yeah, and there's a playlist for past episodes of this. We've also got next week, hopefully, Mark Gutierrez, who's one of the invitationals from this year, is coming on. I've just got to... I don't see why it won't be happening, but as often happens with me, I get paranoid when I haven't heard from someone for a few days on an email. I think, no, they've forgotten, or my emails have gone to spam. But yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That'll be fun.
Great.
I'm looking forward to that.
And good luck everyone that's finishing their Great Guitar Build-Off builds today and uploading stuff.
Yeah, get it done.
Up. You've not got long.
Yeah. I saw Todd said he's going to finish it this afternoon.
I'm more than positive if you're late, they still take stuff even during voting. You know, you just have, if you did that, you would just, you know, have less exposure for the vote. You know, a lot of people might get in and vote early and miss you, but it's never too late. Get it done.
Don't worry about the time frame, people. They'll push it back for a week like they did last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
See ya.